Absolutely, Kathy. The financial and operational interests of Eskom remain key for the survival of our economy, and so it has been very interesting to hear how they have performed over the last year. Joining me now is the CEO, Andre de Ruyter. Not to waste any time, Mr. de Ruyter, thank you for your time this evening. I wonder, I recall you speaking at an event in May, and you mentioned that you would be very interested to see an investor who would be willing to invest in such an expensive project as power utility with aging infrastructure. And I wonder now, when you look at what is happening and your financial position, the high debt costs, the really low revenue costs, do you foresee a point where Eskom will stop being reliant on state funds?
Yes, we definitely can foresee such a point. Of course, there are a number of things that need to happen before that can take place. So the first thing is that all of our customers need to start paying us. And in particular, those municipalities that have been defaulting, they collectively owe us now 39 billion rand. So that's about 10% of our total outstanding debt. The second thing is that, unfortunately, and this is the bad news, that we will have to have at least one more significant increase in our electricity tariffs in order to make us self-sustaining. And then the third part of the equation, in order to make us independent from taxpayer support, is that we need an equity injection of between 100 and 150 billion rand. Once we achieve those three levers, we will be weaned off taxpayer support and we will no longer be a burden on the state.
And by estimates, how soon will that day come?
So a lot of it, of course, is outside of our control. We are working with municipalities in order to persuade them to pay, using both a carrot and a stick approach. But then secondly, we also have the plan to increase tariffs in consultation with NERSA, and then we are working with National Treasury and some of our major investors and debt holders in order to address the equity conversion.
Let's talk a little bit more about municipalities. It is the second biggest cost on your balance sheet outside of the cost of coal. And I wonder, the municipalities that are really defaulting and in places where you've switched off power, had to switch off power in order to negotiate a bit with that default, what about the communities, the actual people that are suffering and not getting power supply? How long do you anticipate that they will continue not to have power for as long as their municipalities don't pay?
I must say that the majority of municipalities with whom we have engaged to put in place so-called active partnering agreements, where we assist the municipalities to capacitate them to improve service levels, to improve billing, to ensure that they can collect money from their residents and ratepayers in order to pay Eskom. Those municipalities have seen improvements in their revenue collection, and accordingly we have seen improvements. However, there are municipalities who have been unwilling, recalcitrant, they haven't paid, and consequently what we have had to do there is unfortunately impose limits on, for example, the amount of electricity that they can buy from us. Now, the way that I think the process is supposed to work is that the residents of those towns need to hold the council accountable for what is happening with the payment of electricity, and those processes need to play out.
When we look at the Medupi power station, you've just recently gotten the final unit up and active, and now there was an incident where there was an explosion. At first investigations, is this as a result of negligence because there was a rush to finish the project, or is there something else underlying the explosion?
So the unit that where this incident occurred, Unit 4, has been in commercial operation for a number of years now. So there's no link between the recently completed Unit 1 and Unit 4. So what happened at Unit 4 was during a routine maintenance check, a generator exploded when hydrogen was inadequately vented from this unit. We are still investigating what exactly went wrong. At this point, it does seem as though there was some non-compliance with the operational procedure required to degas this hydrogen from the generator, but we will have to await the outcome of that investigation.
And at first estimates, what do you think this will cost you going forward?
very rough order of magnitude cost estimate between 1.5 and 2 billion rand, and it could take about 18 months to repair.
This is in addition to the new 34-odd billion that you need to put in to Medupi to make it environmentally compliant. This power station has run at extraordinary amounts of overruns. I mean, do we see an end an end?
So part of what we have to do at Medupi and generally in Eskom is to change our project execution methodology completely. Previously, Eskom thought that it had the capability of managing all of the interfaces between contractors. And it turned out, as very vividly illustrated at Medupi and Kusile, that we don't. So we are going to use a lump sum turnkey approach to this new project to install flue gas desulfurization, which will significantly reduce the contract execution risk that caused all of these delays and cost overruns at Medupi and Kusile.
I want to turn our attention quickly to the three units that are now going to be the decoupling of Eskom, if we call it that. And the generation unit, which is the one that's coming up, or the division, which will be legally recognized from December 2021 this year. I wonder, because it remains one of the most expensive and loss-making business units, do you think that once it's separated from the business, it will be profitable, it will attract investors in any way, or is this going to continue to be a drain on the balance sheet?
So the generation business will be separated from December 22. The transmission business will be legally separated from December 21. So the generation business, yes, will carry the bulk of our debt. About 80% of the debt will be allocated to that business. And of course, it is saddled with old plant that requires a lot of investment in order to make it environmentally compliant. And hence the need for us to determine or create a new future for our generation business by repurposing, repowering, and participating in the just energy transition.
My last question to you, Mr. Director. You have announced recently a grand, ambitious plan to have 106-odd billion investment in renewable energies. And at the same time, we have the Minister of Minerals and Energy telling us that he had to have his arm twisted in order to allow 100 megawatt self-generation. And so I wonder, as you go ahead in these plans, do you anticipate that the conversation around introducing more renewable and making Eskom a significant renewable player is going to be a little contentious?
Look, I think first of all, the energy space, the electricity space, affects everybody in the country. So everybody, of course, has a view and an opinion on it. I think the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy is our policy head. Minister Mantashe determines policy, energy policy, which is also applicable to Eskom. We fully intend to abide by and comply with that policy. And in fact, the plans that we have put forward do exactly that. They are in compliance with the ILP 19.
Mr. Director, thank you so much for your time this evening. There was Mr. Andre Director, the CEO of Eskom. Let's have a look at how